City Council members in the River City finding their footing. Members are looking at the big picture budget delivered by new Mayor Deegan. They're also leaning into their local area needs. District 1 Councilman Ken Amaro joins us. Back to school is on the way all over our region. Duval County has a program that gets rising graduates ready for the work world. Two of the leaders for Duval Ready Diploma explain it. And there are some amazing images to see as a global research study includes UNF. We'll speak with some of the professors engaged in looking at climate change and changes in salinity on This Week in Jacksonville. So glad you're with us today. We're now into the month of August. Does that mean the honeymoon is over for the newly elected city officials? City Councilman Ken Amaro is with us today, and it's great to have you back on our show. Councilman, I'd love to hear about this first month on the job for you. What's it been like?
I think I'm still in the honeymoon phase there, Kent. Started July 1. Actually didn't move into the office until the week of July 10th. So far, it's been enlightening. It's been a wonderful experience. Constituents are calling, and so me and my ECA, Joe Johnson, we're reaching out and being responsive because in my previous career, that's one of the things that I learned, that you have to be responsive. You have, whether they like your answers, yes or no, they still want to hear from you. So it's been going smoothly so far.
So that previous career, you were troubleshooter, you were the consumer guy.
Yeah.
So definitely there's some of that, some of what you did for those many years, helping people who would call a TV station. Now you're helping who have issues with the city, right?
And that's why I thought this was a very good fit, very good transition to someone like myself who didn't want to sit at home and be retired. And who desired to continue public service. And so, yes, I'm finding some of that to be the same. In fact, when I get through here, my ECA and I are driving out to a neighborhood just to hear what this guy has to say about a particular situation. Reality is I could have stayed at City Hall and say, send me pictures,
right.
But it's good when you're there in person and they see that you're being responsive.
So what are some of your priorities when it comes to Arlington, District 1 that you represent?
Well, you know, one of the things about Arlington, for many, it's what I call a pass-through. You get over the Matthews Bridge and you drive toward the beaches and you never really venture into Arlington. So my hope is that to address the needs of public safety and infrastructure over the next term that I'm there, and participate with some of these nonprofits that are there that are trying to revitalize, to rejuvenate, to make Arlington what it was, a very delightful suburban community that over the years has experienced what I call benign neglect, and as well as transition. A lot of property owners have either been passed on and the properties have been sold. They're now rental properties, things of that nature. So it's transitional, and it's even more diversified than when I first moved to Arlington in 1975. So some of those things we have to address to revitalize and make Arlington what it is. And there are a number of civic groups, nonprofits that are energized, that are doing things, and so I have to do my part from the Diocese City Council, be sure that we get those capital improvement projects, those things that improve the quality of life, to make things, make it safer for everyone within that community.
It seems in this last decade, for sure, when Tim Koss took over as president at JU, that there's been some energy there surrounding the university and JU saying, hey, let's partner with the city to revitalize at least some of the areas there.
That is so true. That is so true. JU understands that it's an integral part of this community, and Dr. Koss comes in and he makes a commitment to say, listen, we don't want to just be an institution, we want to be part of. And so he's been at the table in partnership with COJ and any other entity to make sure things are getting done. For example, there's $10 million in a budget now to work on the roadway from University at the Arlington Bridge, Matthews Bridge, all the way up to JU. And that roundabout that was put in under Councilman Morgan's tenure has facilitated that traffic flow. It has enhanced the entrance to JU and has beautified that area. So they want to be there. And, you know, the med school that he's been talking about, it's going to be there. And so he's committed to the community.
You know, I'm curious about this. Regency Mall, part of the district as well. Is that benign neglect too? I mean, we've seen it kind of slide a little bit.
It's benign neglect. It's, pardon my French, a lousy property owner who's not committed to doing anything there, absentee ownership. A few months ago, I met with a couple of individuals who had purchased the Sears portion, because what a lot of people don't know is that the Sears portion is owned by Sears, or its parent company. JCPenney portion is owned by JCPenney's, and the middle section is owned by another individual. And I met with some folks who have some interest in doing some stuff with that Sears portion, which is about 18 acres. And what they presented seemed very viable. I don't know if that's still the path. I have not heard back from them since then, but these kind of things literally take time.
Yeah. So. Do you see it going the way of the Landing at some point?
Prayerfully not. That is a prime piece of real estate, to be honest, at that intersection of Monument and Atlantic Boulevard. A great piece of real estate. Hopefully, we can get someone who is interested. That's meeting, and we can meet with the current operators. Again, it's someone in New York, a hedge fund. I'm not quite even sure who it is, to see what kind of commitment we can make to that area. You know, we had the eyesore of the Be the Light, the Ramada and Thunderbird, whatever name you want to call it, and now that's been raised. That's been flattened, so that area is open and ripe for development. So far, the property owner who lives in Miami has not expressed what he intends to do, but because he was constantly facing code enforcement penalties, he obviously made the decision, I need to get rid of this, you know, get this eyesore out the area. And then further down on the right-hand side off the expressway, what used to be the old FBI headquarters, an application has been filed to do something with that property. I don't know what the details are as yet. But these little moves are what's necessary to excite folks, to get them energized.
So, Councilman, what I'm discovering right now, you've done a lot of work already in this first month, and there's a lot more to do.
I've done a lot of talking, yeah, but there's a lot of work to do, and I'm ready. I'm ready to get it done. You mentioned what's the first month been like, and to me, coming from the private sector to government, one of the biggest frustration is how long it takes to get things done.
I'm sure.
And I wish there was a way to expedite some of these things. You know, the mayor.
I don't want to frustrate you now, but how quickly this time goes might be another one of those things, because we're out of time.
Oh wow!
And I've
really?
got this, and this I want to talk to you about. So maybe we just get together again.
We'll come back, and I know the stadium is a big one, so we'll come back and have a chat.
I'm sure we're going to have chats about that. City Councilman Ken Amaro, thank you so much for the time today. All right, so we're turning to education and discovery in our next segment. Researchers on a global project concerning the threats to marine ecosystems and the connection to UNF. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
UNF is participating in some global research. It's on salinity and how that threatens marine ecosystems. We're going to hear from a researcher here in studio in just a moment. First, though, I connected with Dr. Till Rotig in Germany about the purpose behind the study.
This has been a coincidence to start with, because salinity is a very well-studied field of biology on plants, on humans, on any animals. And we figured that salinity is changing as a consequence of climate change. And then we basically just connected the two different fields. We connected the knowledge that we have about how changing salt contents affects life in general with how salinity in the ocean is changing as a consequence of climate change. And by connecting the dots, we basically opened the door to a new, well, it's new for the human beings, basically, a new factor that is central in climate change.
So I'm curious about this. Why is this study unique? And the connection, in this case, with researchers even from Jacksonville, Florida at UNF.
Yes, so everything that I have described so far is not so unique, really, because there has been a lot of literature out there on that these salt patterns are changing in the ocean. Just no one has thought about yet how that will actually affect life in the ocean, and connected to that, how will that affect humans that depend on this life and on these ecosystems. And this is basically the idea that we had as a team, that is a team of international researchers from Australia, from the US, from England, from France, from Germany, and I hope I forgot no one, but no, this is the complete team. So we connected as experts in certain fields related to this topic, and we wanted to work out how do these salinity changes reflect on the ecosystems and what changes might that have for the humans. And no one ever did that before.
How was the study conducted when you dived in and decided, here's how we're going to research this issue?
Most of the climate study, there is a lot of computer work related to it. So first we had to verify how big are actually these changes that we are talking about. So there's a lot of modeling involved. There's a lot of data that have already been taken involved. For example, we use data from the IPCC, the International Panel of Climate Change, what they use in their model, and use those data to create models about how the salinity patterns change. We also use models to quantify how the rain patterns change, because the rain eventually runs into the ocean. So that affects the coastal areas more. And then we basically had our windows, like the windows of salinity changes, of salinity variations. And now we basically just had to look which organisms will have a trouble if these windows are changing, or if the magnitude of the window is changing.
And now joining us from UNF, Dr. Cliff Ross, biology chair and professor. And I really enjoyed that conversation. Did I say the name right? Rotic?
I believe so.
What a character, and really interesting to hear his perspective. I'd love some of your perspective here. How did this international team work together on this study? Maybe how did you guys come together to work?
Sure. I think it originated, Till reached out to a former UNF student. So I had a former graduate student named Stacy Trevathan Tackett, who's a great scientist, graduated from UNF, moved to Australia, and is a researcher in Australia. And she reached out to me actually and said, hey, you have expertise in corals and seagrasses. Would you like to be part of this international study? I'm like, surely, absolutely.
So help somebody if I'm not a biologist, or maybe don't understand some of this. So we're talking about salinity, and we're talking, certainly we've heard the phrase climate change. Maybe get basic for us. What are we talking about
absolutely.
here?
So I think we're all familiar with the term climate change, and what's happening is we're experiencing rapid climate change where things are just changing rather drastically. And you know, going back in time, millions and millions of years ago, the climate has always oscillated. It's gotten warmer. We've gone through ice ages. It's gotten warmer. And what's different now since the Industrial Revolution, with lots of factories online, is it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer with more carbon dioxide getting into the atmosphere. And again, there's a big focus on carbon dioxide emissions and the globe warming. And I think we're experiencing it this summer. I mean, it's been some brutal heat that's been out there. Warming is not the only factor we're contending with. And so part of the factor is changing salinities as well. And so what's happening is out in the open ocean, and that's where our study is focusing on, you have areas where it's getting warmer. It causes more evaporation. As more water evaporates, the water that's left behind is getting saltier. But it's more complicated than that. Once the water evaporates, it moves elsewhere, and we have rainfall, and now it gets more fresh over there. So areas that are kind of dry to begin with, they're getting drier and saltier, and areas that are kind of getting fresh are getting fresher and fresher. So it's a little complicated, but salinity is a factor that's typically always overlooked, and we're just bringing it to the attention that, you know, it's not just thermal stress. We've got salinity issues going on as well.
So what is the most affected by the climate change induced salinity changes? You just described some of it. What's most impacted by that?
There's a lot of things that are impacted. Our focus is on biology life. So all your favorite appetizers and entrees that are out there, especially in the coastal areas, can be affected by that. A lot of people don't think about it as well, but also currents, oceanic currents. They are driven by salinity changes. And as the salt content changes, currents, it's feasible that they can change their patterns. Absolutely.
That's something that you and other researchers are already determined, or is that coming out of? What kind of conclusions are coming out of this study? It's
already been established that changes are imminent. And our study really is, it's just kind of a call to attention. We don't have solutions, but we're just bringing to everyone's attention the fact that there are salinity changes that are occurring, that will be occurring, and we need to study this better. better. We really don't have solutions outright. Here's what has to happen, but these are things that need to be brought to the public's attention.
So in describing climate change, you say, hey, over millions of years, so we see changes. Is this something that we necessarily need to be working to slow down or to stop the impact of these changes in salinity?
Sure, and now I guess I'll kind of put my pessimist hat on. I think, in my personal opinion, I think we've gone too far. So a lot of this is based upon carbon dioxide emissions. There's a certain amount of carbon dioxide that's out there in the atmosphere that's causing the globe to warm up. Even if we had a magical theoretical faucet that we can shut off carbon dioxide emissions right now, it really wouldn't change things. It's really going to take years and years to recalibrate. So I think the big concern is, how are we going to respond to what's happening? We need to be aware that salinity is going to change in different environments, and we need to study this. That's kind of the premise of our paper. We need to study this more carefully and better understand how salinity changes, and also how that works with other parameters in the ocean. How does that relate to oxygen content? How does that relate to the basis of food, phytoplankton, zooplankton, all these things like that? So we're just kind of bringing it to attention. We don't have clear-cut solutions. We need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, yeah.
But there's a greater awareness because of this. And I was really interested to see this global participation here, the research going across the different countries. Dr. Ross from UNF, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. All right.
So start of a new school year, but it's the finishing touch for next year's graduates. We're going to talk about a local program to prove young people are ready to work. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
And joining me at our roundtable for our final segment, leaders from Duval County Public Schools. This is Jill Fearley, Director of Career and Technical Education. Then Corey Wright is with us as well, Assistant Superintendent of Accountability and Assessment. So classes getting ready to start for the new year, and I want to hear about this Duval Ready program. Corey, if you'd start us off, maybe what is it? Is this new to the district? What is this?
Sure. Duval Ready is a diploma designation. It's actually new. Several years ago, when our board went through their strategic planning process, they heard from the community that students may not be as prepared for the workforce as our employers would like. So through that strategic planning process, the school board tasked us with creating a credentialing process to demonstrate mastery of soft skills. So we took some time to engage with the community and local employers to determine what soft skills are really important to be ready for the workforce. And through that process, we were able to come up with problem solving, communication, team building, and real essential skills to prepare students to be prepared once they receive that high school diploma to go into the workforce.
Jill, I'd love to hear from you. What kind of impact are you seeing, or do you anticipate for students who sign up for this or say, hey, you should be part of this?
Yeah, so students, like Corey said, are learning about leadership. They're mentoring others on these skills, and then they're authentically practicing them with a capstone project. But then they're also having meaningful conversations with their teachers, with counselors about what's their next step after high school. Are they really prepared for that next step? Are they ready for the workforce? So we're seeing a lot of engagement with our staff and students, with our students, with their families about what does it really mean for them to be future ready when they graduate high school. So
yeah, so important, right?
Yes.
So I want to show you some of this, the Duval Ready Diploma designation. So it's a diploma seal students can earn, and it symbolizes they've completed the Florida Ready to Work curriculum. So here's some of what they're doing. They're earning soft skills credential recognized by the state. They've demonstrated they've mastered these skills. And as you just mentioned, Jill, this capstone project is what they'll show. But the skills are professionalism, communication, teamwork, problem solving. And then these are the credentials that they can earn. And there's a kind of a long list here. Corey, maybe this is back to what you were saying. Is this the feedback that we've heard from the business leaders that say, hey, to work in our fields or our industries, we need people who are ready in these areas? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the development of this credentialing process, we engaged with the community and the employers within our community to make sure we were setting standards that employers wanted our students to have. So based on that feedback, those were the essential areas that employers are looking for in students entering the workforce.
So I saw online some video of some of the training. It seems like it's really important to be able to have opportunities for these students to practice things like interviewing. I saw an example of that in video. How to communicate in business settings. That's got to be important, right?
Yes. Yep. Interacting with our business partners is critical. They're one of our most important stakeholders with career education. So all of those are experiences that our students get to participate in and really make the Duval Ready diploma authentic. So,
how many students are getting involved here? And is there a target or a goal on how many students you would want to have involved?
Yeah, the graduating class of 2023, there were 629 students who completed all components.
All components.
All components of the Duval Ready designation moment, right? So
that's the kind of student, as a business owner, that's the kind of student I say, I'm going to give them a shot. I might want them as an employee, right?
Yes.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Yes, exactly.
They're out there. Please hire them.
Absolutely. And so, but we have students in as early as 8th grade starting this process. So we're building, there's been thousands of students participate at some level last year, and they're just going to build upon that in the years to come to help develop our workforce.
How is the word getting out? Is this a matter of certain teachers say, hey, my 8th graders need to know about this, or hey, you're a senior, don't you think you should be part of this? How are students getting recruited?
So every school participates. In 8th grade, all students are participating through social studies. And then in high school, every school does it a little bit differently. So there's a designee at every high school that organizes how it's done. So if families were interested, they would work with their school through their principal to figure out who the designee is, to figure out what program or what class it's done through.
And then before we get too far away from the subject, are there specific certified teachers who do this, or how are we getting the training to these individual students?
Yeah, that's what's great about the way the curriculum was developed, is it really can fit within multiple programs or classes. It's not a standalone class that students are stuck to and they have to fit it within their schedule, but some of it could be done self-paced on their own. Others can fit it into specific career technical education classes or other various programs that the building offers. So there really are multiple ways for students to engage in the process, and we really want to provide access to all students.
Yeah, it will help all of us in our community if those students who graduate are ready to be active participants and good part of elements of the workforce, right? I appreciate the time. Jill and Corey, thank you so much. Get ready, back to school. Here it comes, right?
Yeah,
here it comes.
Coming, ready or not.
That's right. Thank you so much for the time today.
All right.
And thank you for being here with us. Next time, we're going to focus on the 5,000 Role Models program in local schools, plus first-time City Council member Chris Miller will be here. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17. And you can find us online at news4jax.com or streaming on News4Jax Plus. And if you're only joining me Sundays for This Week in Jacksonville, you're missing out. Be sure to subscribe to my weekly TWIJ newsletter. Head to news4jax.com/newsletters and then click to sign up under This Week in Jacksonville. Have a great week.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.